Hello and welcome. This is the Zen community of Oregon, making the teachings of the Buddha Dharma accessible to support your practice. New episodes air every week.
Evening. Here we usually start with taking refuge. Taking refuge means to go to that which we trust. And there's an internal refuge and an external refuge. We have a certain external refuge would be, I have refuge, I take refuge, I have faith in the fact that there was a guy named Shakyamuni Buddha, that he had certain kinds of teachings, that there is a Sangha that's out there. I take refuge in the goodness of the community. Take refuge in all those Dharma teachings that lead to liberation. The internal refuge is I take refuge in my own Buddha mind. I take refuge in the truth that is before thought. I take refuge in the awareness that is liberating. I take refuge in my own understanding and the hard-won wisdom of my particular life, our particular life, all the things that I have learned. I take refuge in the wisdom that I have learned, and I take refuge in my ability and my willingness to connect with others. So we take refuge in the external, the internal, and then the transcendental, that which is bigger and more inclusive than anything else. And all that is just summarized in I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dharma, I take refuge in the Sangha. Now, each week I usually just start talking, see if there's something in the community that's of interest. And I think it might be of interest to start doing a series. I just saw this book back in the library by Thich Nhat Hanh, The Art of Living. Now, The Art of Living was a series of lectures that Thich Nhat Hanh did just before his stroke. He was teaching, I think, for 3 weeks at Deer Park or Plum Village in France. And he gave this whole series of lectures. Probably 2 or 3 weeks after that, he had a massive stroke and he was never able to speak again. And, he lived for a few more years after that. But they pulled together his lectures, and it's a wonderful book. During the COVID, I think I went through the whole thing with people online. But let's just use this as an anchor, as a base to start. And if any of you are interested, it's available online. I got this copy from the library. I think Koda was going to give it away, but I just reclaimed it. So,
if we have extra copies, I will give them more.
Well, you don't have to. I'm just saying I definitely know this one will be back in the library. It's on my iPad, so I already know. So we'll just use this as the anchor, okay? And you'll see that with any text, of course, to make it alive, we'd have to do more than what's in the words. We have to make it alive. So we'll endeavor to use this as a thread. People are welcome to read it, digest it, challenge it, anything you want to do with it. But we'll try to make it alive because it's a primary book about the wisdom that comes out of practice. And after all, whatever we say is just words. It doesn't matter. It's just words. You'll forget them all anyhow. If I ask somebody, what did I talk about last week? I mean, somebody might say Dharma, but that's about as far as it goes because words, they just disappear, right? But if something touches us and we can actually use it and practice with it and adjust it and learn from our own mind, then it begins having some, then we can put it in action, then we can make it real. So the hope is that we're going to use a text like this simply as a skillful means, as an entrance gate. But if we can apply those and we can see how is liberation possible right here with me, how can this help me have an open heart? How can this help me to really meet my life in a skillful way? Then it becomes useful. So talking a little bit about, as an introduction to this, I'll do maybe a formal introduction after I've kind of re-looked at the introduction, re-looked at his introduction. But the first thing he talks about in here is impermanence, interbeing. So let's talk about the Heart Sutra. Do we chant the Heart Sutra tonight? No. The Heart Sutra begins, the Bodhisattva of compassion. Bodhisattva is an enlightened being, the enlightened being of compassion. The enlightened being of compassion from the depths of wisdom, and we say prajna wisdom, transcendental wisdom. The enlightened being of compassion from the depths of wisdom saw that all the five aggregates, that is, everything it's made, is made of something else. So your body is made of how many different parts? 43. Yeah, or more. You know? Your body is made up of an infinite number of parts, trillions of cells, right? The floor, infinite number of parts, cells and strands and fibers. Everything is made up of something else. And the aggregates are basically one of the Buddha's way of saying, let's just categorize reality. Let's just put things into, and it says, okay, the first thing that is made of something else is all physical things are made of something else. It doesn't matter whether it's a book or a head, it's all made of something else. Everything is made up of components, right? So that's the first of the aggregates. The first things that are aggregated is physical things. The next thing is aggregate is thought. Now, that's a more interesting. So what is thought made of? What are the components of thought? You all are expert grade A #1 thinkers. If you look at thought, what's it made of?
Language.
Language?
Senses.
Hmm?
The different senses.
Different senses?
There's an eye which sees.
An eye which sees?
That perceives and perceives all of it.
Okay. Which is thought, which is a thought too. Mm-hmm. What else? What is thought made of?
Images.
Images? Other thoughts? That's actually the best one. Thought is made of other thoughts. Yeah, interpretation of past experiences. Memories, reflections, opinions, judgments, language. Most of us think in language, right? I've met a few people who thought in textures, or a few people who thought in images, but most of us think in English or German or Swahili or something. So thought is made up of other things. If you had no memory at all, it'd be kind of hard to think. Memory of English, or memory of your history, or memory of school. So it's made up memory is part of thinking. Right? Or discrimination. If we weren't able to discriminate, if we were just in the room and it was all a pink blur, we wouldn't have much to think about. But part of thought is discrimination. Oh yeah, there's all these different people here, and they all have different hairstyles, or no hairstyles, or whatever. So that's the second of the aggregates. Feeling is made up of other things. Thought. What's the third one?
Perception.
Perception, okay. So what's perception made of? Sensation. Which sensations do we say are made up of, are part of the perceptual field? Good. Perception is made up of the five senses, right? We feel things, we hear things, we think things. It's all that's perception, right? And perception is always made up of the thing. So what's sound made up of? Vibrations. And vibrations have up and down and in and out and hard and soft and long and short. And there's not one thing called vibration. It's many things. What's sight made of?
Vibrations.
Well, vibrations too. It's part of the electromagnetic field. Photons. If any of us have ever seen a photon, I've heard about them, but I've never seen a photon. What's your direct experience? What's sight made of?
Brightness.
Brightness, yeah.
Darkness.
Color. Images. look around the room. It's
Yeah.
depth, perception, yeah. So the sensation of sight is, the aggregate of sight is made up of all these different components and more. I mean, we're just kind of touching on the idea here, right? Feeling, thought, choice. How does it go?
Formation.
Formations. For anybody who's new, there's basically a chant. The Bodhisattva of compassion from the depths of partial wisdom saw the emptiness of all the five conditions and sundered the bonds that cause them suffering. Know then, form is no other than emptiness, feeling is no other than emptiness, thought, sensation, perception, volition, etc. So, what is volition made of? Conscious doing. What's it made of? So let's try it out here. Everybody raise your right hand.
Motion.
Okay, good. That's right. Part of it's made of motion. When you look at the volition of raising your right hand, well, what's it made of? Thought too, yeah. Intention. What else? You raise your right hand. What are the components? Movement. Decision, volition, intention. Yeah. I mean, it has to be part of English because otherwise nobody would have raised their right hand if I'd said it in Swahili, if I had knew Swahili. Discrimination. You have to. Yeah.
There's this range of possibilities of things that we could do, and we have to choose one.
Exactly. Choice is part of that volition. And now the last one is consciousness. Okay. Everybody here has a name, and everybody here knows, I hope you know without a shadow of a doubt that you're sitting here in this room. I hope that you are conscious of that. If you're not, well, maybe we should talk some more later on. But it's such a fundamental thing. I hope that we are all conscious that we are sitting here in this room. What's consciousness made of? We are all conscious. We got that one down. Awareness, yeah.
Someone is aware.
Someone's got to have self and other in a way. Aware of I am more conscious of myself. So,
Sensation.
there's of course sensations also. Thought too. Everything, of course. If we look carefully, thought is made up of form, feeling, thought, and choice. Or they're all made up of each other. They all interblend. They're all it's just a way of slicing a carrot. We could slice it diagonally to the right, or we could slice it vertically to the left, or we could slice it, horizontally. Just a way of slicing reality so we can kind of hold on to it. Consciousness is made up of non-conscious elements. So tonight we're talking about impermanence. And the classic sutra that we talk about as freedom is the Heart Sutra. And the Heart Sutra is the Bodhisattva of compassion from the depths of wisdom saw that all the aggregates were basically fluid, flowing. And that insight helped them be liberated, was liberation. Now, I like the word flow better than emptiness. The classic one is emptiness or voidness. But, emptiness doesn't mean anything. It's empty, right? And if we all know we're sitting here. We all know we can hear these sounds, right? We're not confused about that. So when they use the word emptiness, those translations, think, I'm not empty. There's something present. I think the word flow, when we see that everything is flowing, constantly flowing, nothing is stuck. When we know that from our own direct experience, My thoughts are flowing. You know, no matter what we think, we're going to think something else. My breath is flowing. I guarantee if you decided that you wanted to sit here frozen in this room, you would maybe do that for 10 minutes. Because your body is going to flow, it's going to move. The air moves, the earth moves. Everything is flowing. The place that the reason the Heart Sutra says that when we really and truly see it's all flowing, it's all made up of something else, all those fixed ideas, it should be this way, I am that way, the world should be according to me, this is the outcome that I want, this is the outcome I have, this is the way things are, begin to melt. And instead of living in a crusty world of shoulds and oughts, we begin to look in a world that is full of flow. Things are really cold, warm today, and they'll be cold tomorrow. The government is behaving itself today, and it's going crazy tomorrow. You know, our partner is at peace today, and it's agitated tomorrow. Our digestive system is working well today, and it's all blogged up tomorrow. You know, when we begin to see it's all just flowing, we're never stuck. It's always flowing. That flow is one of the ways of looking at what we call emptiness. Everything is flowing. So who I am, I mean, how many different I ams from this level are there? Sometimes I'm really dumb, and sometimes I'm really slow, and sometimes I'm really smart, and sometimes I'm really, with it, and sometimes I'm spaced out, and there's so many different, I ams. Sometimes I'm really social, and sometimes I'm asocial, and we're all like that. We're just flowing, we're flowing, we're flowing. When we actually begin to see it's all flow, then we stop getting worried about, how can I manipulate other people to look at me the way I think I want them to look at me? When we see it's all flow, we begin to relax inside and say, oh, there's something mysterious, something awesome that's going on here, which is beyond my ken. When we begin to see it's all flow, we realize potential and possibility is always possible, that we're never stuck. I like to say that the 5 elements are earth, fire, water, air, and surprise. Because we're never stuck. Something is always coming out on the event horizon. Something new can always appear. So the first thing that Thich Nhat Hanh starts talking about is flow. Now, the way he looks at flow is that it's not as though there's nothing there. The word emptiness kind of implies there's nothing, there's a big hollow in there. But he says, if you look directly, everything you're aware of has, you can see it, you can hear it, you can think it, you can feel it. I mean, how can you perceive something that has no... So he says, let's not say everything is empty, let's just say everything is full. Everything is filled to the brim. Everything is filled to the brim, and it's all connected, and it's all flowing, and it's all moving. And there is no ground that you can rest on. That's the scary piece. There's no ground, because it's all flow, because we're living in basically a dynamic bubbling quicksand. So Thich Nhat Hanh's first chapter is about the interconnection of the flow of all life. What does that mean? One of the implications of that, of course, is that means if we change our mind from a mind that is small and dark and reactive and fearful, and we begin to have openness and space in our mind, that affects how we see the world. That affects the world. That affects the way we interact with people. That affects everybody we have in contact. So when we really see, we're not fixed, it's all flow, and we make a change, that change has repercussions. And So they say in the spiritual literature that when someone is truly free and the force of the universe is moving through them and the change can be great. Joman gave a talk about Gandhi this morning, talking about the force of kindness, compassion that got his task done, liberation of India from Britain, but also had the power of the universe moving through him. So we have when we look at who we think we are, and we find that I am not a frozen thing, we look at who we think we are, the inner critic, those critical voices, those things that say you're no good, you're lousy, you're failing, they're just voices. They just blow through. Because everything changes, everything is shifting. So that also means that everything is fresh. Right here, everybody is, I'm the only one clapping, but everybody is ostensibly clapping. Right here, everything is fresh because the past is already gone. It's already gone. Whatever the talk was at the beginning is already gone. So everything, when we see the fluidity of all things, the coming together of all things, not only is there a great responsibility and empowerment, but the past is gone. We can unfold that in different ways. So that's the introduction to the first chapter of The Art of Living by Thich Nhat Hanh. Although I don't know if he said any of the words I just said. So, but I hope that was of interest. Comments, insights, reactions, opinions, advice? Jonathan is ready with his microphone. He was going to give it to Sogol as fast as possible.
I'd like to hear what the role of memory is, which is, of course, stored thought. Could be interpreted that way.
Okay, we can talk about that.
What is the role of memory for a human being?
So, that's a fascinating topic. I mean, what is memory in the first place? That's the interesting thing. And the mind does not remember things in real time. When I was younger, I used to think it was like showing how old I was, I used to think it was like a record player. But or a cassette tape that, you push record, and suddenly you're recording a series of memories, and it goes on this little disc, and you can kind of take it out and plug it back into the right machine and get your memories back. It doesn't work that way. The mind does not remember things in real time. It doesn't remember things in chunks. It might remember some traumatic things in real time, but they're very, very discrete. In general, and there's you can get PhDs in this. In general, the way we remember things is we remember snippets. We remember little encoded bits. And the little encoded bit gets formed, stuck somewhere. It comes up, and then the mind creatively imagines a whole scenario around the memory. All of you have had the experience of being at a family dinner or being with friends or something, and you start thinking about something that happened, and you get 6 different ideas of what happened. And it's even terrible if you're in a relationship and you start arguing, you said, no, you said, because it's all made up. So the first thing, I have this big sign outside of my office at the monastery. It says, your memory is inaccurate and may be entirely wrong. So, the first thing about memory is it is not hard and fast. I thought it was so fascinating when I first realized that until people started writing down things, there was no history. It's with the advent of writing, we began to have, there's a common understanding of what happened. Before that, it was all story and myth. And 1,000 different stories, 1,000 different myths. But once we started writing things down, then we could have a consensus and say, oh, this is what happened. See, it's all written here, and we all agree with that. But then I started thinking, oh, Abraham Lincoln has at least 17,000? I forgot the exact number, 17, a lot of books written about him. Each one has a different perspective on who Abraham Lincoln was and what he did. You know? At one point, he had more books written about him than any other single subject in the United States. That's been supplanted now because the Civil War is so far behind us, so to speak. So, first off, memory is creative. We create memory. The memories of our childhood are created. Now, if we have a traumatic memory, something that we associate strongly with a particular sensation in the body, then often we feel a sensation in the body and a cascade of particular ideas, a cascade of particular thoughts or dialogues. That happens, and we can actually undo that by feeling the sensations in our body without the story. By actually feeling the experience, which is of course present. It's of course here the only time you can experience anything, without the story. Because this is in a way the remnants, this is the manifestation, this is the conclusion of all that history is right here. So, one hand, we have memory is idiosyncratic, it is creative, it is kind of reformed over and over again. It depends a lot upon our particular view. On the other hand, it is really good to have a memory. It's really nice to know whose clothes you're putting on in the morning, and who you woke up with in the morning. It's really good to have a sense of your own history and your own trajectory. That being said, who we are is flexible beings. We're not fixed ideas. So, when people ask us to tell the story of our lives, every time we tell the story, it's different. My story of who I was at 20 is different than 30, is different than 40, is different than 50, is different than 60, is different than 70. So, secondly, I think education is great. I'm really in favor of education. And the more we can learn about the nature of memory through education, and by looking at books and common understanding and looking through the scientific method, wonderful. So let's put all that together in terms of spiritual practice. If you want to build a car, you want to get all the information you possibly can, and you want to get everybody's collective memories about what is really relevant and what's work for solving that particular problem. If you want to think, okay, this is who I am, it's fairly unreliable. So if you have a particular problem, it's very good. Secondly, each of us has our cultural heritage, has our cultural way of being. And that cultural way of being is associated with story, with myth, with who our society is. It's part of us. So to hold that sacredly, to hold that without it being rigid, memory is great until it becomes rigid. I am right and you are wrong. Because that isn't the way it works. So, I wish I had a better memory. I wish I could remember people's names. I wish I could remember, I used to have, when I was younger, I had an internal map of the city of Portland. I could go pretty much anywhere. Unfortunately, it's not the way it case anymore. So, the better the memory, great. But it's hard to trust.
Thank you for listening to the Zen Community of Oregon podcast, and thank you for your practice. New episodes air every week. Please consider making a donation. at zendust.org. Your support supports us.